I want you to picture a laboratory for a second. You know, you've got microscopes, Bunsen burners, detailed logs of cause and effect.
Peer reviews, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. It's cold, it's precise, it's completely objective. Now, and stay with me here. I want you to picture a church or a temple.
So incense, chanting, old books.
Right. And a whole lot of blind faith. Usually we keep these two worlds totally separate. You don't take a prayer into a lab, and you generally don't bring a microscope into a cathedral.
Yeah, they are like oil and water in the modern mind.
Yeah.
I mean, one is entirely about believing and the other is about testing.
But today we are diving into a book that claims that distinction is, well, it's total nonsense. We are stripping away the vague spirituality and looking at religion through the lens of engineering.
It's a massive paradigm shift.
We are talking about Raja Yoga by Swami Vivekananda.
And this is truly one of those seminal texts. When Vivekananda brought this to the West in the late 19th century, he wasn't just up there preaching. He was essentially handing over a manual, a literal technical manual for the human machine.
A manual for the mind. And the core premise here is wild. Religion isn't a belief system, it's a practical science. But before we start dismantling our own minds today, I need to make sure you know that this deep dive is powered by the Simplified Summary YouTube channel.
Which is an incredible resource.
It really is. If you are the kind of person who wants to download the world's most complex books directly into your brain, you need to be over there. So please go subscribe and share it with a friend who thinks a little too much. It helps us keep the lights on and keeps these deep dives coming your way.
Definitely go hit subscribe. You won't regret it.
So let's get into the source code of the mind. Vivekananda starts with this hook. He says, each soul is potentially divine. Now, normally when I hear that, I just think of, a motivational poster in a corporate office.
Yeah, a cat hanging from a branch.
Right. But he means something very specific by that, doesn't he?
He really does. He's not just saying, oh, you're special. He's saying there is a specific energy, an actual divinity inside every single being. And the goal of life isn't getting a promotion or buying a big house or even just being a nice person.
Which is what we usually settle for.
Exactly. The goal is to manifest this divinity by controlling nature. And he splits nature into two distinct parts. You have external nature, which is the physical world around us, and internal nature.
Which is the mind itself.
Right. And Raja Yoga is specifically the path of controlling that internal nature. It's often called the royal path because it doesn't require you to go be a monk in a cave somewhere. Yeah. But it does require a king-like command over your own internal faculties.
We have a ton of ground to cover because this book is actually two books in one. First, we have Vivekananda's lectures from New York, which read kind of like the intro course. And then we have his translation of the Yoga Aphorisms of Patanjali,
which is the ancient, hardcore source material.
Think of the lectures as the why and the aphorisms as the how. And our mission for this deep dive is to treat this entire stack as a step-by-step guide. We are not skipping the hard parts. We are going to talk about the philosophy, the breathing, the posture, and yes, even the superpowers.
The superpowers are always where people get tripped up, but we'll get there.
So let's unpack this scientific approach to religion. This is chapter 1. Vivekananda comes out swinging against the modern state of religion.
He's very aggressive here, but in a really refreshing way.
Right.
He looks at chemistry and astronomy and says, why do we trust these? We trust them because they are based on direct experience.
Right. You look through a telescope, you see a star.
You mix two chemicals together, you get a visible reaction. But then he looks at religion and says, well, what is this? It's just a bunch of people saying, believe this because I said so, or believe this because some guy wrote it in a book 3,000 years ago.
It's the trust me, bro school of philosophy.
Precisely. And Vivekananda absolutely hates that. He says if you go to a chemist and say, I believe this chemical reaction happens because an invisible spirit told me it does it is, the chemist is going to laugh you out of the room. The chemist says, show me.
And Vivekananda argues that religion has completely lost this experimental basis.
It has. It's become a bundle of theories and dogmas where you just have to believe in a being above the clouds without any proof whatsoever.
There's this quote that really stuck with me from this chapter. He says, "It is better to be an outspoken atheist than a hypocrite." That is a really heavy statement for a religious teacher to make.
It is heavy, but it's intellectually honest. He's basically saying if you haven't seen God, don't pretend you have. If you haven't felt your soul, don't claim you have one just because it's socially acceptable or because you're terrified of going to hell.
So he actually respects the atheist.
He respects the atheist who says, I see no proof, much more than the religious person who just fakes it to fit in.
So his entire argument is that if God exists, we should be able to see him. If the soul is a real thing, we should be able to perceive it.
Yes. The ancient sages, the rishis in India, they didn't just believe. They saw. They experienced it directly. And Raja Yoga is simply the science of replicating that exact experience. It's the method of verifying the claim for yourself.
Okay, but if it's a science, we need an instrument. I mean, astronomers have telescopes. Biologists have microscopes. You can't exactly see a soul with an electron microscope. So what is the instrument of Raja Yoga?
The instrument is the mind itself.
Hmm.
But there's a catch. The ordinary mind, the way yours and mine works right now, is completely useless for this.
Useless. Why?
Because it's scattered. Imagine a lamp with a light rays are dissipating in every possible direction. It lights up the room vaguely, but you can't focus on anything in the distance. Or think of a searchlight that is broken and just spinning wildly.
Okay, I can picture that.
Yoga is the process of fixing that searchlight. It's taking the scattered, chaotic rays of the mind and concentrating them into a single laser beam.
And when you finally have that laser beam,
You turn it around. Instead of looking out at the external world, you turn that concentrated mind inside. You use it to illumine what is happening within your own psychology. That is how you actually see the soul.
that sounds incredibly difficult. I mean, why would anyone go through all that trouble? What is the ROI here for you and me?
The ROI is the permanent end of misery. Vivekananda is very pragmatic about this. He says all misery comes from two things: fear and unsatisfied desire.
We fear death. We fear losing our jobs. We want things we can't afford.
Right. But why do we fear death? Because we fundamentally believe we are the body. If the body dies, we die. But if you use this instrument, the concentrated mind, to realize as an experiential fact that you are not the body but the eternal self, then the fear just vanishes.
Because you realize you don't actually die when the body drops.
Exactly. It's not just about feeling peaceful or reducing stress. It's about a fundamental structural shift in your identity that makes suffering literally impossible.
And he insists, I really love this part, he insists that there is no mystery here. He strongly warns against mystery mongering.
Yes, he has zero tolerance for secret cults. He says anything secret, anything that claims to be magic or requires you to pay a guru for a hidden mantra should be rejected immediately.
He says those things weaken the human brain, right?
They do. Raja Yoga is a rational, open system. It's exactly like learning a language or studying physics. If you put in the practice, you get the result. If you don't, you don't. It's open to absolutely everyone.
Look into the actual practice then. This brings us to section 2, the 8 limbs, Ashtanga Yoga. Now, most people hear the word yoga, and they instantly think of yoga mats, Lululemon, and stretching. But that physical aspect is just one tiny fraction of this, isn't it?
It's 1/8 of the system, to be precise. And in Raja Yoga, it's not even the most important eighth. The system is built like a ladder. You have to climb it step by step. You can't just jump straight to the roof.
Steps 1 and 2 are the foundation. Yama and Niyama, these are the moral trainings.
Right. Yama includes non-killing, truthfulness, non-stealing, continence, and this is the one that always trips people up, non-receiving of gifts.
Yeah, let's stop right there. Non-receiving of gifts, that feels oddly specific. And honestly a bit rude. Does that mean I can't accept a birthday present from my mom?
It sounds incredibly strict, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But you have to look at the psychology behind the rule. Vivekananda argues that every single time you accept a gift, you create a psychological obligation. You lose a tiny fraction of your independence.
Like a strings attached kind of situation.
Even if the strings aren't visible to you.
Yeah.
When you take something from someone, your mind instinctively feels a debt. You are now subtly bound to that person. The yogi wants to be absolutely free, beholden to no one.
So if your mind is cluttered with 100 tiny IOUs to society or friends or family, you can't focus. You're leaking mental energy.
Exactly. It's entirely about mental sovereignty. And Niyama, the second step, are the observances: cleanliness, contentment, study, self-surrender. Basically, it means getting your life in order so you aren't constantly distracted by drama or guilt or a messy room.
So assuming we aren't accepting any gift and we're telling the truth, we move to step 3, Asana, posture. This is where the modern yoga class lives. But Vivekananda seems to have a real beef with Hatha Yoga, doesn't he?
He really does. He draws a hard line between Raja Yoga, the royal path of the mind, and Hatha Yoga, which is the path of the body. He says Hatha Yoga is entirely focused on physical strength and longevity. You can do Hatha Yoga and live to be 150 years old.
Which, to be fair, sounds pretty great.
Sure, but Vivekananda asks, so what? He calls a person who does that just a healthy animal. You might live 150 years, but if you haven't realized your soul, you're just a very old, very healthy animal. He uses this great line. He says, the banyan tree lives for 500 years, but is the tree enlightened?
Ouch. That's a brutal takedown. So for Raja Yoga, the body is just a vehicle.
Correct. The body is strictly an instrument. You just need it to be healthy enough so it doesn't bother you. You don't want to be dealing with a toothache or a bad back when you're trying to meditate.
So what is the actual rule for asana in Raja Yoga? Do we need to be able to put our legs behind our heads?
Not at all. It's deceptively simple.
Yeah.
You must hold the spinal column free. The chest, the neck, and the head must be held in a perfectly straight line. The weight of the body should be supported by the ribs.
So no slouching.
Right. You can sit cross-legged on the floor. You can sit in a normal chair. It really doesn't matter, as long as that spinal column is free and straight.
Why is the spine so important? Why that specific alignment?
Because, as we'll see in the next section, all the action in yoga, the movement of the nerve currents, happens along the spinal column. If you're hunched over, you're basically kinking the hose. You cannot think high thoughts with your chest collapsed.
Okay, spine straight, chest out. Step 4 is pranayama, which is controlling the vital forces. But before the heavy lifting, the text mentions a very specific breathing exercise to purify the nerves. Nadi Shodhana.
Yes. And Vivekananda makes a very bold promise here. He says if you practice this specific breathing exercise, you can purify your nerves in 15 days to a month.
That is a remarkably quick turnaround for spiritual enlightenment. What's the technique?
It's alternate nostril breathing. You close the right nostril with your thumb and inhale deeply through the left for a specific count. Then you close the left nostril and exhale through the right. Then you inhale through the right and exhale through the left.
And this isn't just about relaxation, like in a modern mindfulness class.
No, the goal is to physically balance the system. He said the nerves in the average person are blocked or rusty. You can't run high voltage through a rusty wire without causing damage. This breathing clears the blockage, so the real energy can flow safely later on.
Before we talk about that high voltage energy, I want to touch on a story Vivekananda tells in this section. It's the story of the god and the demon. I think it really sets up why we are doing all this in the first place.
It's a classic story from the ancient Upanishads. So a god named Indra and a demon named Virachana both go to a great sage to learn about the self. They want to know what is the thing inside us that never dies. The sage just looks at them and says, "Thou art that."
But he doesn't explain it. He just drops that cryptic line and lets them figure it out.
Right. And they both completely misunderstand him initially. The demon, Virachana, goes home, looks in a mirror, and thinks, aha, this body is the self. The sage said me, and I see me in the mirror. So he goes back to his demon friends and says, eat, drink, and be merry. The body is God. Keep it strong, dress it up, just enjoy life.
That sounds like pure modern materialism.
It absolutely is. It's the philosophy that says you are nothing more than your biology. But the god, Indra, he's a bit sharper. He walks home and starts poking holes in the theory. He thinks, wait a minute, the body gets sick, the body dies. If the body is the self, then the self dies. That can't be right.
So he goes back to the sage.
Multiple times. The sage leads him deeper and deeper. Indra thinks, maybe it's the vital energy. No, because that fluctuates. Maybe it's the mind. No, thoughts come and go constantly. Finally, after persisting, he realizes the self is the observer, the witness, that which is entirely beyond both body and mind.
Thou art that. It's getting to that realization that's the hard part. And this brings us to section 3, the physics of the soul. We need to talk about prana.
This is a definition we have to get exactly right because it's widely misunderstood. Often, prana is translated simply as breath. Vivekananda says this is a huge mistake. Prana is the energy, the universal force. Breath is just the physical manifestation of that energy.
He uses the analogy of the flywheel and the engine.
Yes, think of an old steam engine. The steam moves the piston, which moves the flywheel. The flywheel then moves the rest of the machinery. In the human body, the breath is that flywheel. It's the moving part we can actually see and consciously control.
We can't reach inside and control the steam directly.
Exactly. We can't touch the prana directly. But if we grab the flywheel of the breath and regulate it, we could eventually gain control over the steam itself.
There's that great story about the minister in the tower that illustrates this perfectly. I love this one.
Oh, it's a great MacGyver moment.
Yeah.
So a minister falls out of favor with the king and is imprisoned at the top of a high tower to perish. His wife comes to the bottom of the tower at night and asks how she can possibly help him. He tells her to come back the next night with a beetle, some honey, a silken thread, a pack thread, and a thick rope.
It sounds like a riddle.
It does. But she comes back with the items. He tells her to tie the fine silk thread to the beetle's leg and put a drop of honey on its horns, and then set it on the wall pointing up. The beetle, smelling the honey just ahead of it, crawls up the wall, pulling the almost invisible silk thread behind it.
And when it finally reaches the top, the minister grabs the silk thread.
Right. Then the chain reaction starts. He tells his wife to tie the thicker pack thread to the bottom end of the silk. He pulls up the silk and gets the pack thread. Then she ties the heavy rope to the pack thread. He pulls that up. And finally, he ties the rope and slides down to freedom.
And the analogy here is that the breath is the silken thread.
Yes. The breath is the silken thread. It's distinct, it's light, and most importantly, we can catch it. If we manipulate the breath, we can eventually get hold of the nerve currents, which is the pack thread. And from there, we finally grasp the prana itself, the heavy rope, which allows us to escape the prison of the body.
That brings us to the psychic physiology. We've got these highly technical terms, Ida, Pingala, Sushumna. What exactly are we looking at here?
Imagine the spinal column again. On the left side of the spinal cord, you have the Ida nerve current. On the right side, the Pingala. These correspond loosely to the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, or the lunar and solar energies in the body. But the absolute star of the show in yoga is the Sushumna.
That's the hollow canal running right down the center of the spinal cord.
Correct. Vivekananda explains that in ordinary people, this canal is closed at the bottom. But situated right at the base of the spine is the Kundalini, the coil-up energy. The entire goal of Raja Yoga, mechanically speaking, is to wake up this sleeping energy and force it to travel up the Sushumna canal.
And he treats this as a literal physical fact, not just some poetic metaphor.
He is very literal about it. He argues that every perception you have is a reaction to outside stimuli. But in dreams or in deep memory, we have vivid perception without any outside stimuli. That energy has to be stored somewhere in the body. He says it's coiled up at the base of the spine.
And when you wake it up and it travels up the spine, it hits different centers, the chakras.
Described as lotuses, yes. And as it hits them, perception radically changes. Layers of the mind open up. It's like an elevator going up a skyscraper. At the first floor, you just see the street. At the 10th floor, you see the whole city. When it finally hits the brain, the Sahasrara, the yogi, detaches entirely from the body and mind and enters superconsciousness.
But there is a massive warning here. He says if you force this process, if you rush it without that moral foundation we talked about earlier, it can be incredibly dangerous.
Absolutely. This is exactly why the non-receiving of gifts and the truthfulness mattered so much. If you pump high-voltage energy through a nervous system that is full of dirt, selfishness, ego, anxiety, you will blow a fuse.
He warns it can lead to physical illness or even mental instability.
You actually see this sometimes in people who do intense breathwork retreats without the necessary mental prep. They get totally ungrounded, sometimes even psychotic.
So we're breathing, we're sitting straight, we're safely waking up the energy. Now we actually have to deal with the mind itself. This is section 4, controlling the mind. And here we have arguably the most famous analogy in all of yoga, the monkey mind.
It's iconic for a reason. Vivekananda says the human mind is like a monkey, but not just a normal monkey. This monkey is drunk.
Drunk with the wine of desire.
Right. And as if being a drunk monkey wasn't bad enough, it's also been stung by a scorpion. That scorpion is jealousy. And to top it all off, a demon has possessed it, the demon of pride.
A drunk, stung, possessed monkey. Honestly, that feels incredibly accurate to my mental state when I'm just trying to fall asleep at night.
It feels accurate for almost all of us. And the monkey is jumping around wildly, incessantly. So how do you control it? Most people try to wrestle the monkey. They sit down to meditate and say, stop thinking. Stop it.
And that never, ever works.
Never. Vivekananda says, do not force it. If you try to repress the thoughts, they will push back with double the force. The method is to simply stand back and watch. Be the witness. Let the monkey jump.
Just watch the thoughts pass by like clouds in the sky.
Yes. He says if you just observe without judgment, without saying, oh, this is a bad thought or a good thought, gradually, the monkey gets tired. The mind calms down on its own accord.
This leads directly into the practice of Pratyahara.
Pratyahara translates to gathering towards. It's the conscious withdrawal of the senses. The analogy he uses here is the tortoise. When danger comes, the tortoise instantly draws its limbs inside its shell. The yogi learns to draw the senses away from the external world in the same way.
So you can hear a loud noise, but you don't connect your attention to it. Your mind is disconnected from the ear.
Exactly. Once you've successfully withdrawn the senses, you can move to Dharana, or concentration.
Right. Dharana is holding the mind to a single point. It could be the tip of the nose or a lotus in the heart. The key here is exclusivity. You are forcing the mind to focus on one single thing to the absolute exclusion of all else.
He suggests visualizing a lotus full of light in the heart. That seems to be a recurring theme in these texts, using light as an object of focus.
Why light specifically?
Light is a very pure, simple image.
Yeah.
It's much easier for the mind to hold on to than a complex, abstract concept. It's neutral, it's soothing, and it doesn't trigger a chain of associative thoughts.
So if you can hold that concentration, you graduate to the next level. Section 5, the superconscious state. This is where we get into Dhyana and Samadhi. I always get these two mixed up. What's the practical difference between concentration and meditation?
It's all about flow. Dharana concentration is focusing on a spot, but it's effortful. The mind slips away, you drag it back, it slips again, you bring it back. Dhyana meditation is when that focus finally becomes an unbroken flow. Vivekananda uses the image of pouring oil from one vessel to another.
It's a continuous, smooth stream, not separate drops.
Exactly. That smooth stream is meditation.
And when that meditation becomes so intense that you actually lose the sense of, I am meditating, that is Samadhi.
Yes. In Samadhi, the external form vanishes and only the meaning remains. You merge entirely with the object of concentration. But Vivekananda is very careful here to distinguish Samadhi from sleep. This is a vital distinction to make.
Because in both sleep and Samadhi, you aren't aware of the outside world. To an observer, they might look exactly the same.
Right. But the result is completely different. He says a fool goes into sleep and comes out a fool. A fool goes into Samadhi and comes out a sage.
That's the litmus test. Deep, permanent transformation.
Exactly. Sleep is unconscious. You dip below reason. Samadhi is superconscious. You pierce right through the ceiling of reason. He argues that reason works in a circle. It's inherently limited by the data it has. Samadhi breaks that circle and gives you direct, unmediated perception of truth.
He breaks down this perception into 3 parts: Shabda, Artha, and Jnana. This is a bit technical, but let's decode it for everyone listening.
It's essentially linguistics meeting metaphysics. Shabda is the sound of the spoken word. Artha is the meaning, the actual physical object. And Jnana is the knowledge, your mental reaction to it.
Okay, give me an example of how that works.
Sure. I say the word cow. You hear the sound that's Shabda, you have the universal concept of the animal that's Artha. And you have your own mental flash of a specific cow you saw once on a farm that's Jnana.
Normally, these 3 happen instantly and are mixed up together like a smoothie.
Yes, you can't separate them in normal waking consciousness. But in Samadhi, the yogi can separate them. They can look at the meaning distinct from the word and the memory. It's getting to the pure essence of the thing itself, totally bypassing the limitations of human language and personal memory.
That covers the lecture portion of the book.
Right.
Now, we shift gears significantly. The second half of Raja Yoga is Vivekananda's translation of Patanjali's yoga aphorisms. This is the real source code. It's terse, it's incredibly dense, and it's brilliant. Section 6, concentration.
Patanjali starts with the most famous definition in the entire history of yoga. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha.
Yoga is restraining the mind stuff from taking various forms.
Let's break that down carefully. Mind stuff. The Sanskrit word is chitta. Vivekananda asks us to think of the mind not as an invisible process, but as a physical substance. Like a lake.
Okay, I'm picturing a lake.
Now, thoughts aren't things floating on top of the lake. Thoughts are actual waves of the lake itself. These are called vrittis. A whirlpool, a tiny ripple, a massive crashing wave. Those are your thoughts.
So when I'm angry, my lake is stormy. When I'm distracted by my phone, it's just really choppy.
Yes. And here is the fundamental problem. The goal of yoga is to see the soul. The soul is the bottom of the lake.
And you can't see the bottom if the surface is choppy.
You can't see anything. If there's mud or bubbles or waves, the reflection is broken and distorted. The only possible way to see the true self, the Purusa, is if the lake is perfectly glassy and still.
So restraining the mind stuff is stopping the waves, which sounds literally impossible. I mean, just try to sit for 10 seconds without a wave appearing. I'm hungry. My foot itches. Did I leave the stove on?
That is the ultimate challenge. And Patanjali gives us 2 primary tools to calm the lake. Practice, which is abhyasa, and non-attachment, which is vairagya.
Practice is the sustained effort. But what exactly is non-attachment in this context?
It's the brake pedal.
Yeah.
Practice is the accelerator. Non-attachment is the brake on your senses. It's not running away from the world and living in a cave. It's controlling the internal thirst for objects.
So you can be in the world interacting with it.
But if you aren't thirsty for it, you are unattached. If the lake isn't desperately trying to grab every single loose that falls onto it, it stays much calmer.
Patanjali also brings up God here. He calls him Ishvara. But this isn't exactly the God some listeners might be picturing from Western traditions, is it? It's not an old man with a beard sitting on a throne.
Not quite. In yoga philosophy, Ishvara is defined as a special purusa, a special soul. He is entirely untouched by misery, untouched by action or karma. Vivekananda calls him the teacher of all teachers. He's the one soul that was never, ever bound by nature.
And his symbol is the word Om.
Yes. Constant repetition of Om and meditating deeply on its meaning is presented as a direct, powerful path to calming the citta.
Moving on to Section 7, Practice. This is Patanjali's book 2. Here we get into the root cause of our pain. Why are we so miserable? Why is the lake always so stormy?
He introduces the kleshas, or obstacles, and the root of all of them is avidya, ignorance.
But not ignorance like, oh, I don't know the capital of France.
No, deep metaphysical ignorance. It's mistaking the non-eternal for the eternal, mistaking the impure physical body for the pure soul, mistaking the painful for the pleasant. It's a fundamental, tragic confusion of identity.
Which leads directly to egoism.
Right. Identifying the seer, the soul, with the instrument of seeing, which is the mind and body.
This is where Vivekananda tells the story of Indra becoming a pig. And this is honestly one of my favorite philosophical anecdotes of all time.
It is the absolute perfect illustration of avidya. So Indra, the king of the gods, gets cursed. He has to be born down on earth as a pig.
A pretty massive fall from grace.
A catastrophic fall.
Mm-hmm.
But Indra the pig completely forgets he was ever a god. He finds a female pig, they have a whole litter of piglets, and he's rolling around in the mud, eating garbage, and he is totally 100% happy.
He's literally happy as a pig in mud.
Literally. The other gods are looking down from heaven, and they're absolutely horrified. They fly down and say, Indra, what are you doing? You're the king of heaven. Wake up. And Indra looks up, his snout covered in muck, says, go away. I'm perfectly happy here. Look at my beautiful babies. Look at this delicious swill. Heaven is nothing compared to this.
And the point is, that is us. That is the human condition.
That is us right now. We are gods, wallowing in the mire of the material world, terrified of losing our pig bodies and our little pig lives, completely forgetting our true royal nature.
So what do the gods do to wake him up?
They realize talking simply won't work. So they kill the piglets. Indra pig cries. Then they kill the wife. Indra pig weeps bitterly. Silently, they pierce the pig body itself. And as the pig body dies, Indra steps out of it, shakes it off, and just laughs. He laughs at the ridiculous dream he was just trapped in.
To stop being a pig, we have to deal with samskaras. What are those?
Samskaras are impressions. Think of them like files on a hard drive, or better yet, algorithmic grooves in your brain. Every single time you think a thought or do an action, it leaves a tiny mark on the mind stuff. If you get angry, you carve a little anger groove. The next time something frustrating happens, it's physically easier for the mind to flow right into that anger groove.
So our character is really just the sum of repeated habits.
Exactly. Vivekananda says our character is just the sum total of these samskaras. They are seeds. They wait for the right conditions, and then they sprout into desires and actions. They even drive our future births. Reincarnation is just the unstoppable momentum of these seeds.
And the goal is to stop them.
To fry the seeds. A fried seed cannot sprout. If you burn the seeds of desire through the fire of yoga, through intense knowledge in Samadhi, you aren't born again. You are finally free.
This leads to the crucial distinction between the seer and the seen.
The universe exists for one purpose only, for the experience of the soul. Nature puts on this massive show, a panorama, so the soul can see it, experience it, and eventually realize, wait, I am not this. Once the soul realizes its total separation from nature, nature's job is completely done. She steps aside.
But before she steps aside, you get the fireworks. Section 8, the chapter of powers, the Vibhuti-pada.
This is the chapter that reads straight like a Marvel comic book.
It really does. Patanjali describes samyama, that super concentration we talked about, practiced on specific objects, and he claims if you do this, you essentially break the laws of physics. You get siddhis.
Superpowers.
Let's list a few of these just to see what's on the menu. If you do samyama on the signs of another's body.
You can read their mind.
If you do it on the form of your own body.
You can suspend the reflection of light and become entirely invisible.
Samyama on the strength of an elephant.
You literally get the physical strength of an elephant.
Samyama on the sun.
Complete knowledge of the solar system and the physical world.
And Samyama on the relationship between the ear and the akasha, or ether?
Divine hearing. You can hear a conversation happening miles away.
Okay, so I'm sitting there, I've been breathing through my left nostril for 6 months, and suddenly I can turn invisible and bench press a truck. Why on earth would I stop? That sounds like I just won the game of life.
And that is the ultimate trap. This is the great warning of Raja Yoga. Patanjali and Vivekananda both emphatically say, stop. Do not do it. These powers are massive obstacles to Samadhi.
Obstacles. They sound like the ultimate rewards.
They are temptations. They are golden shackles. If you get distracted by reading minds or flying around, you are still just playing in the playground of nature. You are still completely bound by the ego.
Because you're thinking, look at me, I can fly.
Exactly. That strengthens the ego. It doesn't dissolve it. You might become a supervillain or a superhero, but you are not free. To reach true liberation, you must reject these powers entirely. You have to walk right past the diamond mine and refuse to take a single stone.
That is the ultimate renunciation right there, giving up literal omnipotence for freedom.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Because even omnipotence is within the realm of the mind. The true soul is beyond even power.
Which brings us to the final section. Section 9, Independence. The Book of Kaivalya.
Kaivalya translates to isolation, but not loneliness. It means aloneness in the sense of being all one, absolute independence.
Vivekananda brings up the ancient alchemists here, which is an interesting pivot.
He does. He notes that the alchemists were trying to do the exact same thing, make the body immortal using chemical means like mercury or sulfur. But he says that's a complete dead end. The body is a compound. Anything made of parts must eventually inevitably fall apart.
And here comes the key logical argument that underpins the whole book. The mind is also a compound.
Yes. The mind changes. It gets happy, it gets sad, it's made of parts. Therefore, the mind cannot be the ultimate seer. It cannot be self-luminous.
What does self-luminous mean in this specific context?
Think of the moon. It looks like it shines brightly, but it just reflects the light of the sun. The mind looks like it knows things, but it only reflects the light of the soul, the Purusa. The mind acts strictly for the Purusa, and has no purpose or light of its own.
So when we finally reach Kaivalya, when we reject the superpowers and completely quiet the lake, what actually happens?
A cloud of virtue samadhi descends. The gunas, the qualities of nature, recede. They have absolutely nothing left to offer you. The soul realizes it is alone, independent, and perfect. It shines in its own nature, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent.
And there's that beautifully poetic closing image Vivekananda uses. Nature as the mother.
It's incredibly touching. He describes nature as a nurse or a mother who has patiently led the soul through lifetimes of experience. She's shown the soul the good, the bad, the intense pleasure, the deep pain. Why? Simply so the soul could learn.
And now that the soul remembers its royalty, its inherent divinity, the mother's job is done.
She gently, quietly steps away. The soul is absolutely free.
What an unbelievable journey. We went from aligning the physical spine to breathing exercises, through taming the drunk monkey mind, right past the temptation of invisibility to absolute unconditioned freedom.
It is the complete trajectory of human potential mapped out. It takes you from being a reactionary biological anima to a fully realized divine being.
So, to quickly recap our deep dive into Raja Yoga today, we learned that true religion is a rigorous science of experience, not a set of beliefs. We learned the 8 limbs from moral discipline to posture to breath control, withdrawal, concentration, meditation, and finally absorption. We learned that the mind is just a tool, not the master. And we learned that the ultimate goal is to realize thou art that.
And crucially, that you don't need to wait for death to find this out. You can do it right now, in this very body, through sustained practice.
Here's a final provocative thought to leave you mulling over. If Vivekananda is right, and your mind is just an instrument like a telescope, and you are the observer looking through it,
Then who is observing the observer?
that is the question that stops the mind completely. And that's exactly where we'll leave it today. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please, right now, go to the Simplified Summary YouTube channel. Subscribe and share it. Help us spread this kind of profound knowledge.
It really helps support the work. Thanks for listening.
See you in the next deep dive.